Light is at the source of everything. The existence of light is the existence of sight. Without light, we can't see anything really. Whether you're a photographer or a content creator or whatever it is, you have to be a light bender, what I would call the fifth element, if I could call it that way. Photography and cinematography is the ability to manipulate light to tell a story. Hence why some of the world's best cinematographers tend to be photographers as well, whether in this life or in their past lives. Reincarnation is a topic for another day, to be honest. Light determines mood, feel, message, story, and so many things. And so many aspects of light could be talked about. But I'm going to talk about two aspects of light today, which we'll be digging deep into, which is hard light and soft light. This is one topic that has been asked every time I go for workshops or I get to interact with other creatives. People tend to ask, what's the difference between hard light and soft light? Experienced photographers and cinematographers tend to know the difference between these two. But if you're new to this, I'm going to explain to you what soft light is and what hard light is. I'm going to talk about their differences, how to use them, where to use them, when to use it, and the applications, real life applications of these lighting styles. Like I say every time, these are just tools. There are no rules at all. They're just the best practices to achieve specific results. So if you're just getting into this or you've been into this video was made specifically for you. So let's jump into this sea of light. It will be soft, it will be hard, but overall, it's going to be wet with a lot of knowledge and information. My name is Ibukun. I'm the greatest creative you'd ever meet. Okay guys, welcome back. Now I'm going to start with the hard things first, right? It's easy to start with the hard things. Let's skip the easy. Anyways, ignore my speech. Now I'm going to start with the hard light. What is hard light? Hard light is like a small light source relative to the subject. And what it does is that it creates a very sharp contrast in the image or in the video you're making or whatever. It creates very sharp shadows, very dark shadows, and it creates this, like I said, very sharp contrast. So one of the best ways to identify hard light is when you see that the light shining on the subject has created this very hard fall off. And when I mean fall off is that when light shines on a subject, it creates a shadow on the other side. Now that shadow could be a very sharp shadow, or it could have a gradient from dark to light. And now that's really the difference between hard light and soft light. But with hard light, it's a very small light source compared to the subject. And that is something you should take note of that we'll be talking about later on. When you take this light and you shine it on the subject and it creates this very sharp, hard shadow, in the image, it's what you would call hard light. Right? It can be applied in so many ways. You see, it can be applied in movies. It creates mystery, it creates darkness, because when you shine light on the subject and the other side is really sharp, you really can't even see like what is going on the other side where the shadow is being created. So there are a lot of dark areas, right? And these dark areas tend to give mystery in that situation. Hard light is something that you want to use in a situation where that is intense. In a story or a movie, you want to separate a subject from the rest of the things around it. Hard light could be used in that situation. Let's give, for example, 10 men are standing and you shine light on one of them. If the light spreads out on all of them, you probably see everybody in that scene. But if the light is a small light source and it shines directly on a particular subject, it's easily, the fall off is sharp, like I said earlier, so you wouldn't see the rest in that image. Rather, you see who you're shining the light on, so it creates an intense feel or an intense energy, so to speak. One of the best ways to identify hard light is the shadows, from the shadows in the image. If you look at an image here and look at the shadows that the light is creating, is it a soft gradient from the dark to light, or is it a very sharp shadow? If it's a sharp shadow, then you can know that the light source could be considered to be a hard light source. Now I'm going to quickly jump into soft light, because really I can't really talk about hard light without talking about soft light. I have to talk about them interchangeably. Now, soft light in itself is when you have a very large light source compared to the subject, or I would say relative to the subject. And what this does and the effect this creates is that there's a very long or large or soft gradient from dark to light. So the subject tends to have a very soft gradient, so to speak. It doesn't necessarily create mystery. It opens up the image. It creates this very calm feel, if you get what I mean. So soft light is soft. No, anyways, soft light is, I would say, it's when that shows shadows create a very soft fall off. Now, fall off, like I said earlier, means the fall off of the light on the rest of the image. Now, another way to actually easily identify hard light or soft light is something I'll call the wraparound. Now, the wraparound light is when the light falls on the subject, right? You see that the light, for example, if I have my hand and I shine light on it, this other side could be dark, right? But if the light is soft, right, the light could show almost all around the subject, so to speak. So the wraparound is really, it wraps around the subject in a soft light situation, but in a hard light there's not really much of a wraparound because there's no gradient, there's no long or broad gradients from dark to light. Soft light tends to create this dreamy feel, this calm feel. It's used a lot in some of our vlogs. Our content creators tend to use soft lights a lot because they use a green or a ring light. Now let's use a ring light as an example. A ring light is like it's a circular light like this that shines light in a circle. So if you look at if you put a ring light facing somebody's face, it's going to fill up the whole face. So hardly would you even see shadows. So that is a very good example of a soft light. But a very good example of hard light is the sun. And there's a reason why I use the sun as an example. If you go out in the sun in the afternoon, you'll see that it will create a very sharp shadow. Those shadows under your nose or fall off, on the sides, they're very sharp. And then you can say that the sunlight in itself is a hard or creates hard light. Let's go back to something. I said hard light is a small light source relative to the subject. Now, in this situation, would you say the sun is a small light source? It's a very good question. The sun is actually a very small light source compared to the subject. Even though the sun is almost 3-4, what am I saying? Almost? Like over 10 times larger than the size of the Earth. However, the sun is really, really far away. So when you go outside and you look at the sun, you're not looking at this big ball. You're looking at this tiny ball in the sky, and it's shining this light directly on you. Now, however, it doesn't necessarily mean soft light doesn't even exist out there. You would see that even the sun can create soft light. And now, the question is, how does the sun actually even create soft light? If you look at it now, let me give you an example. On an overcast day where there are a lot of clouds, think about it. When the sun shines on the earth, it bounces light in the cloud. The clouds obviously are white, so the light is bouncing off of all the clouds all around the place, which creates even more wraparound around the subject. So in those situations, maybe when the rain just fell and the cloud is still overcasted, or in the morning when the sun is just rising and it's not really penetrating the ozone layer of the earth, you see that the light tends to be softer in that period. Now let's explain it from the angle of relative to the subject. Now, light source relative to the subject is what determines whether it is soft or hard. Let me give you a good example. If you use a torchlight or just a regular torchlight, speed light torchlight, that's maybe the ones that security men use, or or big torchlight, whatever, and you shine it on me, for example, the subject. The torchlight is really small compared to me, so most likely it will create a hard light source, or rather a hard light on me, right? But now if you take that same torchlight and you shine it on an ant, now that ant is really small, so that light would most likely wrap around that ant easily. So if you go close and take an image of that ant, you see that the light would actually be soft compared to me when the light is hard, because as far as we're concerned, I am way bigger than the source of that light, which is the torchlight. But to the ant is really small and the light is really large compared to the ant. So it's not really about the way the light is structured or create or made, it's the size of the light relative to the subject. So for example, if you want to get me to be in a soft light situation, you want to increase the size of the light. One of the best ways, or one of the easiest ways to increase the size of the light, is to even move it closer to the subject. As the light goes away from the subject, it becomes a smaller light source, just like the sun example I gave you today. Now if the sun comes closer to the earth, the light becomes even softer, even though if the sun comes closer to the earth, will most likely be burning. But because the sun is so far away, the light is traveling all that way, and then it becomes a hard light source compared to us that are standing right here on the earth. Next thing I want to talk about is how to make light softer or harder, and let's talk about the strategies and the techniques to use. Now, in a situation where you want a light source to be hard, obviously you want to first of all maybe take the light a little bit away from the subject and maybe increase its intensity so that it becomes a smaller light source compared or relative to the subject. And if you want to make that light softer, you could actually bring the light closer to the subject, which makes it, the wraparound is easy. The fall off is a very big gradient, a very easy fall off, a very I won't say strong, but the contrast in the image reduces, which makes it even soft. Another way to make light soft, or I could say hard, depending on the situation, think about your window. The light's coming in from the window during the day. If you look at it, go to your house right now, if you're watching this video, and just sit by your window and observe it. You see that the light tends to be soft because the window is one big window like that, and the light source is coming from that window. So after the light is bouncing off of everywhere, it comes into you and it's soft. It's the wraparound is, you see the light wraps around you easily, and that is in itself soft light. So most of the time when we shoot videos, when we shoot against the window and the window light from the outside is coming in, the light tends to be soft. But once you step outside into the direct sunlight, you see that the light becomes even hard. If you move away from the window, the light becomes even harder compared to you. Okay, so to create the hard light, you want to move you want to make the light source in itself smaller than the subject. So one of the ways to do that is to maybe move the light away from the subject. That creates high contrast, on the subject. The sunlight is a very good example of hard light. If you want to make it softer, however, you want the light to wrap around the subject. You want to reduce those shadows. So in terms of, you could use reflectors, you could use bounce cards, and that actually gets the light to be softer. If you're a photographer, you get a softbox. Now you have a strobe light, for example, and you shine it on the subject, because the strobe, is a strobe, right? So the light source from that compared to the subject, the subject, is very small. So once you blast that strobe, obviously the light will be hard. But then when you put it in a softbox, now the softbox makes the light source bigger. The strobe is just a small head, but when you put it in a softbox, it becomes a larger light source, and that is why it gets soft, because now it's a very large light source compared to the subject. A very good example where you see the application of hard light and soft light in reality, in photography, is very easy. You could look at an image, observe the fall off, observe the contrast, and observe the shadows. If the shadows are very sharp, you could know that, okay, that light was probably shot, that scenario was probably a hard light scenario, and when you see the wraparound happening, you would easily identify that, oh yeah, it's a soft light. However, in cinematography or in movies, whatever, in a dramatic scenes, check out almost of the movies you see. If you're in a dramatic scene, most likely the light that you're using there is a hard light, because hard light creates mystery, it creates drama, it creates that mood, that dark feel. And most of all these action films, for example, there's mystery. The protagonist seems to be a very calm guy, but the villain is this bad guy. He's just like, evil and all that kind of stuff. So you watch a movie and you check out the villain. Once they want to introduce the villain, he's probably in a hard light situation. He's probably just sitting down somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and one light is just shining on his head, and it's just like, yeah, I've come to get you, whatever. That's one of the situations where you see hard lights being used. Hard light too can also be used in separating things in an image. I could have a story where I want to talk about me and my, I would say, laptop that is right here, and I want to ignore every other thing in this scene. I could take a hard light and shine it on me, because the fall off and the shadows are sharp. Once the light shines on me, and anything after me is going to be in the darkness. I could take another light source and shine it on the laptop right here, and everything away from the laptop, right, would be almost not visible. So I would just be showing, the laptop will just be showing, and that is mystery in itself. I've separated every other thing, and that's one thing that you can easily do with hard lights. However, with soft lights, the light falls almost everywhere, so everywhere is lit up, and then we can see the brightness going on you can see the lights going on in the whole image. So that doesn't necessarily apply if what I'm trying to achieve is this dramatic light separation scene. Soft light wouldn't work for me. But where does soft light work? You see a lot of interviews, a lot of documentaries, a lot of comedies. If you look at movies, yeah, you see a lot of comedies. Yeah, a lot of the light seems to be soft because they're not trying to create mystery. They're not trying to make you scared. They're trying to make you laugh. So they want to show the whole scene. They want to show a guy dancing here whilst another person is just acting stupid in this other corner and just, really hilarious. And that's where soft lights, in some situations where soft lights can be applied. Even in photography, soft light is applied a lot of times. I would say a lot of times rather. I would say a lot of photographers use soft light. Like almost every photographer in Lagos uses or I wouldn't just say Lagos, to be honest, globally, almost every photographer uses soft light. And really, it's not their fault. Soft light creates a very calm feel, a very beautiful scene, a very dreamy feel. And most people that want to take images, that's what they want to feel like. They want to feel that dream fantasy world. Soft light also tends to hide a lot of inefficiencies. For example, if someone has a pimple on their face and you use hard light, the pimple will create a shadow, because we've already said that hard light, if you remember, creates a very sharp shadow. So imagine somebody has a very large pimple on their face here, and you shine a hard light on it. It's going to create a shadow, a very huge shadow, which makes the pimple even more visible. However, if I use a soft light in that situation, it will still shine on the pimple. The pimple will still create a shadow, but this shadow will be soft and there will be much more of a wraparound. So visually, you might not even notice that there's a pimple there. And even when I go into my post-production, I can easily remove that pimple and you wouldn't even notice. However, in a hard light situation, if I pull out that pimple, the shadow of the pimple will still be there, so it might just make the picture a little bit weird. You have to be really pro to manage that kind of situation, which obviously we can do, but obviously we'll be talking about retouching in another video. So if I'm going to summarize, or if I'm to go back and recap on everything I've said, hard lights and soft lights can be used in so many different ways. None of them are bad, none of them are good. They're just lights, light fields, light sources. I personally like to shoot with a lot of hard lights, and then with that hard light source, I then try to create wraparound with it. So it's almost like a mix of hard lights and trying to make that hard light a little bit softer. I like hard lights a lot. I feel like it's strong. And to be strong, you have to be bold. A lot of people run away from hard lights because it creates that sharp shadow. They don't really know how to handle it, and I tend to know how to handle it. And in some of the other videos, I'll be showing you guys how to use hard light and use it efficiently in photographs and in whatever situations that you want to use. I personally love hard light. It's a preference thing, right? So I think you should go out there and start to see how you can deliberately make lights hard and deliberately make lights soft. Don't just take a camera out because every photographer is using softbox. You throw your strobe in the softbox and you just take a picture just like everybody's doing. No. You have to be intentional about what you're doing. So for you to be intentional to start with, you need to know what you're doing first. You need to know how to do what you're doing. So you want to practice. You want to create hard light scenarios, very hard light scenarios, sharp shadows, and you also want to create soft light scenarios as well. So once you're able to master how to use hard light and how to use soft lights, you will then know what exactly your niche is. You know how to bring a balance to the whole situation. There are situations where you can even combine them. The light on the subject is soft, meanwhile the light in the background is hard. That's also a situation. We can have a situation where the light on me will be soft, right? And then we could then use hard light to, make some elements in the background stand out because of the harsh or the high contrast in the image. So you see, it can be used in so many ways. It can be mixed. It can be used just one type of light, one hard light or soft light, or you can even use both of them in a situation. But if I'm to just recall everything we've said today, hard light creates sharp shadows. Hard light creates contrast. Hard light is a small light source relative to the subject. However, soft light creates less contrast, gives it more of a dreamy feel. The fall off is very soft. There's a huge wrap around the subject, and you can see more of the situation happening in that scenario from a soft light perspective. don't be scared to apply it in any way you want. Just go out there and start to shoot, start to apply, start to try to soften lights and even make it harder. I would be talking about hard lights a lot as well. I will be talking about how I even use hard lights, so you can follow me, subscribe to this channel to be notified when I post videos, because I'm going to be talking about hard lights. I love to shoot with hard lights, like I said earlier. A lot of my images I tend to shoot with hard lights. Alright guys, I hope you've had fun today. I hope I've made a lot of sense to you. If you've gained anything, please let me know in the comments below. Please like this video, subscribe, and turn on your post notification button to know when I'm posting the next video. I hope you guys had fun. See you in the next one.